Welcome back to Sabule XA right here on Cape Town TV, the best youth show in the land. So tuned in with Sinalo Jonas, better known as Uputfliki. Right about now, we are joined by water expert Dr. Kevin Winter, all the way from the Future Water Institute at the University of Cape Town. He's also one of the founders of the Peninsula Paddle, which took place this Sunday. He said tell us more about that and how it went and what he's currently doing with his career being a water expert. Dr. Kevin, welcome on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for the invite.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. We know you're currently busy. You're currently attending a conference in Joburg, so it means such a pleasure for us to have you and actually speak with you. Let's now talk about the Peninsula Paddle, which took place on Sunday. How different was this year compared to the previous years?
Well, we began this paddle, by the way, in 2010. There was just 4 of us. And we paddled and tried to paddle, put it that way, across the Cape Flats area from Muizenberg through to Milnerton.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we were actually outside of our boats, pulling them behind us because we couldn't paddle in parts of the rivers where the water hyacinth, the weed, and the levels of pollution in terms of litter and plastics in the water made it really difficult.
Yeah.
And 10 years on, we've enjoyed some really good years. So some of our best years have been from about 2012 until last year. The one we've just done felt, unfortunately, like we'd regressed. We'd gone all the way back to what it looked like in year 1. And there were parts of the canals and parts of the rivers that were really badly polluted, particularly with litter and loads of plastic litter and all sorts of other things, from dogs, cats, all sorts of strange things we picked up on the journey.
Wow, that sounds incredible. The work that you've done since 2010 until now, it seems like this is such a great initiative. I understand that you've actually uncovered some appalling levels of pollution in the city's waterways. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think that we saw through in the retreat in Steenberg area where there are canals and people are living in very dense settlements and housing that's right up against the canals, much like we see in places like Khayelitsha, for instance. And so we saw lots of pollution there. And just by the way, we were actually paddling with the Khayelitsha Canoe Club. And Sianda, as we talked and walked in parts of the canals, Sianda, I think, was saying to me, this is just appalling. And when you come to see some of the things that they've done in the wetlands in Khayelitsha, he said, this is the answer. We've got to bring people together and work with our bare hands to fix it up. And I'll maybe talk a bit more about that just now. But certainly the loads of pollution shocked Sianda and others from the Khayelitsha and also the paddlers that were with me on the day.
Wow.
We measured things like bacteria in the water, which is really high in one place, in 2 places, in fact, particularly along the Black River, and some other pollutants as well. But essentially not in a good condition is the overall findings that we got from that Sunday's paddle.
Wow. Let's talk. You said you've seen so much water pollution while working the streets of Khayelitsha. Let's talk about what can be done to educate normal citizens like me about water pollution. What more can be done?
Well, I think a lot of this plastics and materials and a whole lot of other things, but essentially those are the 2 categories: plastic materials, cardboards, paper, and so on, that finds its way into the river. And a lot of it is because people have actually found themselves with very little choice. And I don't mean that as an excuse so that people can simply continue to throw things into the canals, but it is a position that we find ourselves in South Africa with high inequalities and spatial inequalities across our city, that we are seeing underserviced parts of the city, and that's what happens. People find themselves, what do I do with a bag of rubbish? Well, the only place I can do is to try and get rid of it and put it into the canal, and hopefully it just goes away. And of course, it doesn't go away. It finds its way all the way down the river, down the canals, eventually out to sea. And then we see companies trying to struggle to create drinking water from polluted seawater,
Yeah.
and of course it does a whole lot of other damage out there as well. So look, it's a very, very serious thing, and I don't think we first of all are taking this seriously enough.
Yeah.
And we're not addressing both inequalities and underservices in the city, but we're also not taking seriously what is really happening is this pathway of plastics and pollution and dirty water, which is highly contaminated, and it finds its way into the sea.
Yeah.
I think that the answer, just by the way, is what we do on the paddle. And when we started in 2010, and we've now gathered more and more people to come paddle with us and to enjoy the waterways. This last Sunday, we had between 70 and 80 people on the water at various stages. And it's about actually appreciating the value of that water offers. It's a recreational value. We had tremendous fun on the water, despite the fact that it was dirty. It was a great journey to undertake this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the Kailicha Canoe Club guys have got the same idea. And they started theirs in 2013, and they've got a whole lot of youth who are paddling with them in the cleared wetland in Kailicha. They've got about a kilometer and a half of water that they paddle up and down. And I think it's just great. It's giving us a whole new understanding of how we should be treating water. And it's not a punishment to clean up and to do things, but if you can take that's what is not a fun thing to do in cleaning up, but you can end up enjoying that water by paddling and having fun and talking to your friends and just general recreation. That's fantastic. I take my hats off to them.
I actually love the idea of paddling. It sounds very cool because I think in order for us to do these activities and clean water, we need something cool along the way to do.
Yeah.
I like the idea of chatting with friends and actually cleaning water through paddling. It sounds very cool. But also, speaking of clean water, you took samples of water and you found E. coli bacteria. Tell us a bit about that. What is E. coli bacteria? And how does it actually affect human beings? How does it actually affect human beings who drink water?
That's a great question because we hear E. coli sometimes reported a lot in the news, and it's the one bacteria that we can measure relatively quickly. It's not the only bacteria, but it's a bacteria that it gives us an indication as it gets higher and higher in terms of the counts, as it were, of that bacteria, the more it becomes potentially a carrier of germs that might affect us. And look, let me say that it comes largely from either animals or from humans. You and I have millions of E. coli bacteria in our bodies. And with that, some of those will have a germ or pathogen in it, especially when it finds its way through various sources into open water like we're paddling through. And it's just a measure, an indication of how serious it might be. So when we measure, for instance, 1 million or more E. coli bacteria in the Black River, that could be potentially very harmful to us. You shouldn't have contact with water more than 1,000. So now we're orders of magnitude higher in terms of the bacteria that we measured. And of course, we shouldn't be drinking water with bacteria in because it offers a potential health risk.
Yeah. You've mentioned the fact that we need clean water. There's E. coli bacteria. What other bacteria are there? Just to name a few, what other bacteria can people be informed about?
Yeah, well, I think you can find a lot of things that you get diarrhea from. So let me just give one. Salmonella is a bacteria, and people often find themselves cooking with chicken, for instance, that is been refrozen and cooked again, and you can get that bacteria through food poisoning in that way. But there are many bacteria that are in our water treatment system. They can't always treat them 100% by any means, and they find their way into the water. And of course, we shouldn't be drinking that water. We maybe can use that water for other things, but our bodies sometimes can't take the bacteria and certainly the pathogens or germs that come with them.
Yeah, the month of September actually marks National Clean Up and Recycle Month. So let's. What message do you have for Cape Townians out there?
Well, I think, fortunately, all the news that the Peninsula Paddle generated has already got city officials involved. And so some of them met yesterday on the river to try and look to see whether they could both put in litter nets and try and capture some of that, and also to take out some of the litter that we were reporting on. So that's the good news. The city reports and picks up those reports and is trying to do something about it. But actually, the city is overwhelmed, and we will never win the day if we leave this entirely to a city. This is a citizen problem. This is something that we've got to address at a much bigger level. And of course, the thing that we're quite bad at is that we generate a lot of waste. Even if we are relatively poor, we still generate some waste, and particularly those who are living in underserviced areas don't know what to do with it. And so we've got to get that right. We've got to find ways in which we service poor urban areas, informal settlements much better, where some of the litter is coming from. It's not the only place, but certainly I think that attention needs to go to that. And then lastly, for everybody, I'm not singling out any particular one group, we need to be much more careful now about our water resources and the quality of that water. We've been through day zero, that's affected us, and we've all looked to how are we going to get more supply. If we mess up the supply that we have and the water quality that we've got, we're in an even worse state. We are hitting day zero in this sense in a very different way, because actually poor water quality ends up making us all very unhealthy. And so there's multiple ways in which you've got to do this. But for me, the Peninsula Paddle is starting those conversations and then seeing if we can empower people and enable them to start acting together. And it has to be a together thing.
Wow, definitely it has to be a together thing. We have to clean water together. Speaking of cleaning water together and making sure that we have water that is not polluted, how do normal citizens get involved?
Yeah, so that is a good question too, because I think there are in fact a lot of community-based organizations that are doing small things, trying to clean things up where they can. I think that the involvement is really crucial to find a group that is able to assist. So I've been involved for at least 20 years in the Friends of the Liesbeek, and we've learned a great deal about rivers, water quality, how to work together, how to empower each other and encourage each other to keep on keeping fixed on the ideas and goals that we've got. But I think we need a bigger summit. I think that this doesn't necessarily mean 100 more groups that are going to go and set them up and make a difference. What we probably need in the city of Cape Town is a large summit that crosses the whole parts of the city, that involves people who are going to become actively concerned about sharing a new goal to work together. I think we reach the stage where that's an absolute must.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Well, Dr. Kevin, because of time, we're going to have to end the interview here. Thank you so much. It was an honor having you. And of course, good luck with the conference in Joburg.
Thank you so much indeed, and thank you for the call.
Thank you so much. Well, that is, of course, water expert Dr. Kevin Winter. But right now, we're going to take a quick breather. More to come right here on XA.